Good evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. The Sultanate's trade balance records a surplus of 1.7 billion Omani riyals by the end of April 2018. The Sultanate achieves 5th place at the Arab level and 48th place globally in the United Nations Human Resource Report 2018. And the United States calls an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council to review sanctions against North Korea. Those are the headlines, and now for the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Enrique Pena Nieto of Mexico on his country's independence anniversary. The Sultanate's trade balance recorded a surplus of 1.7 billion Omani riyals by the end of April 2018. The total value of commodities exports of the Sultanate by the end of April 2018 reached around 5.1 billion Omani riyals, with an increase of 27.0% compared to the same period in 2017. Meanwhile, the total value of commodities imports recorded an increase by 9% by the end of April 2018 to reach more than 3.3 billion Omani riyals. The Sultanate has achieved the 5th place at the Arab level and the 48th place globally in the Human Resource Report for this year, issued by the United Nations, advancing 4 global positions and 1 position at Arab level compared to last year's ranking. The report pointed out that countries which achieved advanced in its Arab and international positions, including the Sultanate, had made this due to its economic and development policies that work to develop human resources in the country and achieve highest development and growth rates in the field of education, health, and quality of life. The Airports of the World magazine has praised designs of the new passenger terminal of Muscat International Airport, which it said restores the significant historical role of the capital Muscat, as it serves a large number of passengers. The magazine, whose cover featured a main sheet carrying the title Muscat, the Jewel of the Arabs, stressed that by constructing the new terminal, Oman has brought into being an astonishing jewel to serve passengers and tourists. The United States has called an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council for Monday in response to what it says are efforts by some countries to undermine and obstruct sanctions against North Korea. The U.S. mission announced that during the meeting they will discuss the implementations and enforcements of UN sanctions on North Korea. The mission didn't name any countries, but the U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley accused Russia of pressuring an independent panel of UN experts to alter a report on North Korea's sanctions that includes alleged violation of implementation Russian actors. The Security Council initially imposed sanctions on North Korea after its first nuclear test in 2006 and has made them tougher and tougher in response to further nuclear tests and increasingly sophisticated ballistic missile program. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that the United States is still studying possible waivers of sanctions against countries of businesses that continue commerce with Iran after November 4th. To the dismay of other signatories, Trump in May announced his pullout from the hard-won 2015 international accord, under which Tehran agreed to limit its nuclear capacities in exchange for relief from crippling economic sanctions. Trump said the deal failed to block all paths to an Iranian nuclear bomb and reimpose sanctions. These included secondary penalties against businesses or foreign countries which continue commerce with Iran. Washington wants all countries to halt oil imports from Iran before November 4th if they want to avoid U.S. penalties. Certain waivers have not been excluded, however, notably for India, which depends heavily on Iranian petroleum. The European Union, which continues to back the Iran nuclear accord, has tried unsuccessfully to obtain widespread waivers, and many of its bigger companies have already pulled out of the country for fear of U.S. penalties. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said Berlin was boosting military cyber capacities to respond to Russian hybrid warfare that is targeting its troops deployed on NATO's eastern flank. NATO allies have accused Russia of using hybrid warfare techniques, including subversion, propaganda, and cyber warfare to undermine the West, without triggering a full NATO military response. Russia has repeatedly denied that it staged such attacks and has accused the US-led alliance of provoking an arms race. Last year, Germany deployed over 500 troops in Lithuania as part of a NATO mission to reassure Eastern allies and deter Russia. Soon after their arrival, German troops were subjected to false rape accusations, while media reports said Moscow also targeted NATO soldiers' smartphones. Besides Lithuania, 1,000-strong NATO battalions were also deployed in fellow Baltic states, Latvia and Estonia, and neighbouring Poland. Typhoon Mangkhut lashed the northern Philippines with destructive winds and heavy rains that set off landslide and destroyed homes today, leaving at least 12 people dead and 6 missing. The strongest typhoon to hit the Philippines this year slammed ashore before dawn in Cagayan province on the northeastern tip of Lunzo Island, a region of flood-prone rice plains and mountain provinces with a history of deadly landslides. At least 3 people died and 6 others were missing in the mountain city after ferocious winds and rains destroyed several houses and set off landslides. The typhoon sustained winds weakened to 170 kilometers per hour, with gusts of up to 260 kilometers per hour after it sliced northwestwards, then blew out to the South China Sea. Named after the Thai word for mangosteen fruit, it's the 15th storm this year to battle the Philippines. Tropical storm Florence lumbered inland today, knocking down trees, flooding rivers and dumping sheets of rain in the Carolinas, where 5 people have died. It diminished from hurricane force as it came ashore, but forecasters said the 350-mile-wide storm's slow progress across North and South Carolina could leave much of the region underwater in the coming days. A mother and a baby were killed when a tree fell on their home in North Carolina. The child's injured father was taken to hospital. In Pender Country, a woman died of a heart attack. 2 people died in Lenore Country. A 78-year-old man was electrocuted attempting to connect extension cords, while another man died when he was blown down by high winds whilst checking on his hunting dogs. In Newbern, North Carolina, the storm surge overwhelmed the town of 300,000. About 10 million people could be affected by the storm. Still to come in our news bulletin. A study to preserve the genetic features of the Arabian gazelle is being conducted by the government bodies. Welcome back to the news from Sultan of Oman Television. Attracting Korean contracting companies to work in Duqm Special Economic Zone was the center of discussions at a meeting of the delegation of Special Economic Zone Authority for Duqm, chaired by His Excellency Yahya bin Saeed Al Jabri, chairman of the Board of Directors of the Authority and Union of International Contractors in Korea. During the meeting, they discussed investment in the field of private hospitals in Duqm. His Excellency, the Chairman of the Board of Special Economic Zone Authority for Duqm, stressed that Duqm is growing and witnessing the implementation of several projects in infrastructure sectors, pointing out facilities and advantages given to investing companies in Duqm and its potentials. He added that the growth being witnessed by Duqm requires the establishment of hospitals with international reputation. His Excellency Yahya bin Saeed Al Jabri also discussed with King Jung Chern, Chairman of the Economic Free Zone, ways of cooperating between the two zones in a number of fields, such as training and exchanging expertise and visits. The total bank credit of the commercial banks in the Sultanate by the end of June 2018 amounted to 20.9 billion, with a growth by 4.01%. Meanwhile, the credit granted to the private sector recorded an increase by 2.07% to reach 18.6 billion Omani Riyals. The commercial bank's investments in security markets exceeded 3 billion Riyals. A number of competent government bodies are conducting a genetic study to preserve the genetic features of the Arabian gazelle in its areas in the Sultanate. The study aims to monitor the genetic diversity in natural areas and inside wildlife rehabilitation and propaganda centres in the Wilaya of Barka, a Salil Nature Reserve in the Wilaya of Al-Kamal Wal Wafi, and the Wildlife Reserve in the Wilaya of Wusta. The study will enable environment specialists and researchers to establish more accurate scientific information data for genetic data for the herds of Arabian gazelles in the Sultanate. Now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Partly cloudy skies will prevail over the coastal areas of the Governorate of Dhofar and its nearby mountains, with chances of intermittent drizzle. The rest of the Sultanate will have clear skies with a chance of cloud accumulation and rainfall over the Hajar Mountains. Low cloud and fog late at night and early morning are expected over the coast of the Arabian Sea and the Sea of Oman. Winds will be south to southeasterly light to moderate, and seas will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.25 metres. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The Sultanate's trade balance records a surplus of 1.7 billion Omani riyals by the end of April 2018. The Sultanate achieves 5th place at the Arab level and 48th place globally in the United Nations Human Resource Report 2018. And the United States calls an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council to review sanctions against North Korea. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsrooms and the studio, it's good night.